Our show is now on Stitcher. Listen to us on your iPhone, Android phone, Kindle Fire, and other devices with Stitcher. Stitcher is smart radio for your phone. Find it in your app store or on Stitcher.com. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio.
Pray with me if you will. Come, Holy Spirit, come. Come with the fire and burn. Come with the rain and cleanse. Come with the wind and breathe. Come with the light and reveal. Convict us, convert us, consecrate us. Claim and call us with your care and concern, O God, until we do something. Amen. Scott just read one of two creation stories, at least the first 5 verses of it. Scholars tell us that Genesis 1 is a creation mythology. Creation mythologies are common throughout the ancient Near East. In the ancient Near Eastern context, myth means something that is ultimately true. From this starting point, we could say that the story of Jesus is mythological because the account of his life goes beyond a 3-year sequence of historical events and actually becomes a description of the very foundation of our lives. In other words, the story of Jesus provides a paradigm that is true throughout time. This meaning runs against our current usage, where myth frequently means the opposite, namely that a claim is false. As in the statement, that is a myth. And there's several programs on this. The most famous I'm aware of is called Mythbusters, and it's both entertaining and informational. We use this term, that is a myth, when we believe somebody is telling a lie or when a statement is not factual. The reversal in meaning is partly caused by the elevation of the scientific method in our culture. When we claim that a myth is true, we do not then enter into a dispute about whether we can see, taste, touch, smell, or hear what truth is claiming. If we do engage in such arguments, our partners in dialogue are likely to assert that our truth claims are merely a groundless myth. That is, for the scientist to prove or disprove through verification. Furthermore, the term creation signifies the structure of the entire cosmos. Hence, creation might be better termed as cosmology in biblical literature. Creation is the preferred way in the ancient Near East for addressing the ultimate questions about the world, which are the subject matter of mythology. Creation mythologies, therefore, are profoundly theological, for they always address at least these 4 questions. Who is God? What is the nature and character of this world? What is the relationship between God and this world? And finally, who are we, and what does it mean to be human in the context? The passage deals with the first 3, and further in the text, it will begin to deal with that 4th question, who are we? A couple of other points are worth mentioning. Formless void is a word pair in Hebrew that occurs in only 2 other places, Jeremiah 4:23 and Isaiah 34:11. Whatever the exact meaning of this phrase may be, it would appear that one aspect of chaos is the absence of structure. The Hebrew word for face of the waters is also interesting. Tehom is the proper name, which refers to the primeval waters. These waters are at the core of creation and in heaven. Although biblical writers do not want to give these a personality and thus make them divine, nevertheless, these waters have a threatening quality that borders on personality. Additionally, in Babylonian religion, the primeval waters are in fact a goddess, Tiamat, a word somewhat similar to the Hebrew in this verse, Tehom. The word for darkness also has a threatening quality. Finally, the reference to the wind from God is also ambiguous, since the word can function as a superlative and thus mean a mighty wind rather than a wind from God. Yes, I saw the movie. If those of you who picked up that phrase, that's a scholar's translation, not mine. A final interesting element is that all the text for this Sunday's readings have a reference to water. Form is an important element in life. I recently read an online article about celebrities who have had, and some still do, bouts of stage fright. Some very famous people are nervous before they perform, and I'm just going to list 2 or 3 here because I'm very surprised, having seen their concerts and listened to them, how folks are nervous. Rod Stewart, who has reinvented himself several times as a rocker and then as a balladeer. Barbara Streisand. And then I was reminded, several years ago I watched Charlie Rose interview Dominic Pavarotti. And about this very thing, and I remember the patter back and forth. Mr. Rose said to Pavarotti, "Do you ever get nervous?" And he said, "Every time." He said, "Are you ever frightened about what you're going to do on stage?" "Every time." And for several minutes. And he said, "So how do you deal with it?" And he said, "I have been given a gift from God," said Pavarotti. And at the end of the day, I open my mouth and I use that gift. Are you ever nervous? People ask me that sometimes. Are you ever nervous? And the answer is yes. That's why I pray before I preach, so I don't swallow my tongue. I remember my very favorite quote from Dr. K. Morgan Edwards, who's now with the Angels, but he was an emeritus professor of preaching. He was very tall, like 6'5", and had this beautiful stentorian voice. And he said, preaching is something any 10-year-old can do, provided they have 20 years of experience. And I still believe that's true. It's something you never fully feel confident about, because who am I to speak on behalf of God? But it is a calling. How do we regain form if we think we've lost it? Some of it is found in prayer, some of it's in study. I thought Patty's comment about how we grow as people of faith is apropos. We grow while we draw breath each and every day, because otherwise we become stasis. And anybody with an 8th grade science knows that stasis is stagnation, and when you become stagnant, you begin to stink. So we have to find a way to grow. Athletes do this by how they choose to train. Professional athleticism demands that professional athletes train year-round. Politicians do this by choosing to run or not to run. We as people of faith do this by listening to the will of God as it comes to us and then acting on it. One theologian described it thus: many people today feel that their lives have devolved into formlessness. God is the one who can create form out of chaos, even the chaos of our lives. God can create within us and through us. I don't know how old the movie is, but I've seen it several times. I'm sure it probably was panned critically because it's a hammy movie called Hook. And in that movie, Dustin Hoffman plays Captain Hook. Robin Williams plays Peter Pan. They have this sword fight, and Hook does some of the underhanded things that Hook does. And Peter's response, bad form, Hook, bad form. Think of that. It happens in life. We see athletes behaving badly. We see preachers behaving badly. We see actors transform themselves sometimes behaving badly. There are 2 movies out. I haven't seen either one, but I've read all the reviews, and they seem to be stellar. One of them involves Reese Witherspoon, who has transformed herself to portray somebody who's hiked, I think it's the Pacific Crest Trail, and the other is Jennifer Aniston, and the comment was how physically transformed these women are because they don't have any of the glamour that they normally have through makeup and hairstyle. Politicians do it in a variety of ways. Sometimes they run, and sometimes they choose not to run. Barbara Boxer has announced that she will not seek re-election in 2016. And a different kind of formation has happened. A line has formed behind her for those who want to get at the gate. I did not read a reason why she's choosing not to run. She certainly seems to have the energy and vitality for it, but those are choices that people make. The author of Genesis is telling the story of God's formative power. How does God form us? How does God form us? And are we willing to allow God to have form and function in our lives? I received an email from Dr. Cedric Bridgeforth, I think it was 2 days ago, and Patty will publish it in the Good News, but I want to share it because the email speaks of apportionment giving. Now, if you don't know what apportionments are, here's the thumbnail sketch. We are part of an international denomination, and we send money to our annual conference, which then is sent to national and international missions and ministries. And that's an apportionment. It's a portion of what our fixed budget is. Jim Tyree could tell you what those numbers are, but it's roughly $45,000 of our budget goes to help others. And Dr. Stan Fixed, a retired member of this annual conference, I'm told, formed this phrase that I've used. It's a portion meant for others. Now, through your generosity, we did a second mile gift. We paid 100% of our apportionments, and then I think it's 5 other churches. Is that about right, Patty? Patty will name these. 5 other churches were able to be lifted by the generosity of this house. That's what form does for us. It helps us to find a way to help others. If you feel like you've lost form, bow your head. Thank God for this day. And let God reform you and me. May it ever be so. Amen.
Thank you for listening to the First United Methodist Church podcast, which is recorded live every week at 4832 Tahunga Avenue in North Hollywood, California, and delivered by Dr. Joey McDonald. For more info on us, please check out NoHoFUMC.com or find us on Facebook and Twitter under NoHo FUMC.